Hello, and welcome to the HR Analytics Toolkit course. I'm so glad that you are here. Before we begin diving into the details, let me take a moment to congratulate you. By enrolling in this course, you have already taken an important step toward transforming the way you think about human resources. You are about to explore how to move beyond administration and intuition and step into a world where human resources decisions are supported by clear, structured, and meaningful data. Let me briefly tell you about myself. I have over 15 years of experience in the field of human resources management. I started working at the company Alpha Insurance. Then I moved to work at insurance company PZ2. After that, I started working in the hotel industry at the Fairmont Grand Hotel Kiev. After that, I transferred and worked at the Fairmont Hotel in Chicago. Then I returned and worked at the Hyatt Regency Kiev. And after that, I changed fields and started working in the IT industry at the company Wentrum, and now I work at the company Trionica. Now, let us be honest. For many years, HR was often described as a soft function. It was said to be about people skills, empathy, policies, and processes, but not about numbers. Other functions such as finance, sales, or operations were considered more data-driven. They had reports, dashboards, and forecasts, while human resources was sometimes seen as more emotional or subjective. This perception has started to change, and you are part of that change. Let us begin our journey together by answering the most important first question. What is HR analytics and why does it matter? When people hear the words human resources, their first thought is often about administration. They think about payroll, employment contracts, policies, and perhaps even employee relations. For decades, the human resources function was seen as a support function. It was important, but not considered a driver of strategy. Decisions about hiring, development, or employee retention were often made based on intuition, gut feelings, or traditions. But in today's world, where competition is fierce and data is everywhere, this way of working is no longer enough. This is where HR analytics comes into play. Human resources analytics, also often referred to as people analytics or workforce analytics, is the practice of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data about employees and the workforce in order to make better business decisions. It is about moving away from decisions based only on intuition and moving toward decisions that are supported by solid evidence. Now, you may be asking, why does HR analytics matter so much today? The answer is because people are at the heart of every organization. No matter the industry, no matter the size of the company, it is the people who create value, who innovate, who serve customers, and who make the business succeed. If organizations are not measuring, analyzing, and optimizing their people strategies, they are leaving success up to chance. In the same way that finance departments rely on financial data and marketing departments rely on market data, human resources must rely on people data. Let us go deeper. HR analytics matters for at least 5 major reasons. First, HR analytics helps organizations improve decision-making. When a company is hiring, promoting, or training employees, these are expensive decisions. If an employee leaves after just a few months, the costs of recruiting, onboarding, and training are lost. By analyzing data, organizations can identify patterns of success. For example, they can see which types of candidates tend to stay longer, or which training programs lead to the best performance improvements. This information allows leaders to make smarter, more evidence-based decisions. Second, HR analytics supports business strategy. Human resources is no longer just about administration. It is about enabling the business to reach its goals. For example, If a company's strategy is to expand into new markets, HR analytics can show how many people with the right language skills, cultural knowledge, or technical expertise are needed. If a company wants to innovate faster, HR analytics can identify skills gaps in the workforce and recommend where to invest in training or recruitment. By aligning people data with strategy, HR becomes a true business partner. Third, HR analytics increases transparency and accountability. Without data, conversations about employees are often emotional or subjective. A manager might say, "I think my team is overworked," or "I believe our employees are not engaged." These statements may be true, but they are hard to act on without evidence. HR analytics provides the numbers to back up these statements. For example, data may show that one team has much higher overtime than others, or that survey results reveal low engagement scores. With clear data, leaders can no longer ignore the problems, and they can no longer rely only on opinions. Fourth, HR analytics helps improve employee experience. Employees today expect more from their employers. They want fair treatment, opportunities to grow, and a supportive environment. By analyzing data about employee satisfaction, turnover, development, and pay, companies can identify areas where the employee experience can be improved. For example, analytics might reveal that employees in one department have very limited access to training compared to others. Or data might show that promotion rates are lower for certain groups of employees. By uncovering these insights, organizations can target improvements that benefit employees directly. Finally, HR analytics provides a competitive advantage. In a world where talent is one of the most valuable resources, organizations that know how to attract, retain, and develop their people will outperform those that do not. HR analytics allows companies to understand their workforce in detail, to predict future needs, and to make better investments in people. This leads to stronger performance, higher innovation, and better results for customers and shareholders. To summarize, HR analytics matters because it transforms human resources from a reactive function into a proactive and strategic one. It moves HR from intuition to evidence, from opinion to fact, and from guesswork to impact. Now let us take a moment to reflect. Some people may feel uncomfortable with the idea of measuring people. They may worry that HR analytics reduces employees to numbers. This is an important concern, and it is one we will discuss later in this course when we talk about ethics and transparency. But for now, it is important to understand that HR analytics is not about reducing people to data. It is about using data to better support people. The goal is not to treat employees as numbers, but to use numbers to create better experiences, fairer policies, and more successful organizations. As you can see, HR analytics is not just a trend. It is a fundamental shift in how organizations think about their most important resource, their people. Whether you are working in recruitment, learning and development, employee relations, or leadership, HR analytics provides the tools to make better decisions and to have a greater impact. In this course, we will go from understanding the basics of HR metrics to building dashboards, creating templates, and even using data to make forecasts. You will see how analytics can change the way you look at human resources, and you will walk away with practical tools that you can use immediately in your work. So now that you have a clear understanding of what HR analytics is and why it matters, we are ready to go deeper. Let's continue with an exploration of history. To truly understand human resources analytics today, it is helpful to look back at where human resources came from, how it developed, and why analytics has become so central to the profession. When we study the past, we can see the forces that shaped the present. we realize that HR did not simply appear as a strategic function overnight. It evolved step by step, shaped by changes in society, in business, and in technology. This journey is fascinating, and it will help you appreciate why the shift toward analytics is not just a trend, but the natural outcome of decades of transformation. The early days, Industrial Revolution, and welfare offices. The story of modern HR begins during the Industrial Revolution in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. As factories grew and employed thousands of workers, new problems appeared. Employers needed to manage large workforces, maintain order, and avoid unrest. At the same time, governments were beginning to introduce labor laws related to working hours, child labor, and safety. In this period, what we now call human resources was mostly known as welfare work or personnel management. The focus was administrative, keeping employee records, ensuring compliance with labor laws, distributing wages, and handling basic disputes. Some companies created welfare offices to deal with housing, health, and social conditions for workers. These efforts were often paternalistic, meaning the company acted as a guardian for employees rather than as a partner. The role was necessary, but it was not considered strategic. HR was about administration, not leadership. A rise of personnel management. By the mid-20th century, especially after the Second World War, organizations had become larger and more complex. Economies were growing, unions were strong, and labor relations were central issues. This period saw the rise of the personnel department. Personnel managers were responsible for hiring, firing, payroll, and compliance. They also handled negotiations with unions, disciplinary actions, and grievances. The role became more formalized, with standard procedures and policies. At this stage, personnel management was still mostly transactional. The focus was on processes rather than people strategy. However, it was during this time that some of the foundations for modern HR were laid. Job classification systems, standardized contracts, structured recruitment processes, and systematic training programs. The human relations movement. In the 1950s and 1960s, something significant began to change. Researchers and psychologists such as Elton Mayo, Abraham Maslow, and Frederick Herzberg highlighted the importance of human motivation, job satisfaction, and workplace culture. This became known as the human relations movement. The central idea was that workers were not just hands or resources to be managed mechanically. They were people with needs, aspirations, and emotions. Productivity depended not only on pay or working conditions, but also on motivation, recognition, and fulfillment. This movement shifted thinking. Personnel management slowly expanded into what would later be called human resources management. The emphasis moved toward engaging employees, motivating them, and treating them as valuable contributors rather than replaceable units. The birth of human resources. By the 1980s, the term human resources became more widely used. This change in language was not just cosmetic. It reflected a deeper shift. Organizations were beginning to see employees as assets to be invested in, not just costs to be minimized. HR functions now included recruitment, training, career development, compensation design, and performance management. The role became broader and more sophisticated. HR leaders started to join senior leadership teams, although often their influence was still limited compared to finance or operations. However, something else was happening at the same time. Businesses were becoming more competitive, and globalization was increasing the pressure to perform. Companies realized that people could be a source of competitive advantage, but only if managed strategically. HR as a business partner. In the 1990s, The idea of HR as a strategic business partner gained traction. Scholars like Dave Ulrich argued that HR should not only deliver services, but also shape strategy. This meant HR professionals needed to understand the business, align HR policies with corporate goals, and demonstrate the impact of HR on performance. This was a major milestone in the evolution of HR. No longer just administrators, HR leaders were now expected to contribute to discussions about growth, competitiveness, and innovation. However, there was still one major challenge: how to prove HR's impact. The digital revolution. The early 2000s brought the rise of digital technology. Human Resource Information Systems, HRIS, and Applicant Tracking Systems, ATS, became common. Payroll and record keeping moved from paper to computers. Employee data was stored electronically, making it easier to access, track, and analyze. At the same time, organizations were flooded with data from many sources: performance reviews, surveys, training records, and recruitment platforms. Suddenly, HR had more data than ever before. But having data is not the same as using it. Many HR departments collected information without knowing how to analyze it effectively. This gap set the stage for the next evolution: HR Analytics. The rise of HR Analytics. By the 2010s, the concept of people analytics, or HR analytics, became increasingly popular. Companies like Google demonstrated the power of using data to make people decisions. Google's people operations team famously used analytics to improve hiring, identify high-performing managers, and design better retention strategies. Other organizations followed. They began to analyze turnover trends, link engagement scores to performance, and use predictive models to forecast future workforce needs. HR analytics showed that HR could be as data-driven as finance or marketing. This shift gave HR unprecedented credibility. When HR leaders presented data-backed insights, they were no longer speaking only from intuition. They were speaking the language of business, supported by evidence. HR today, analytics and beyond. Today, human resources has fully embraced the role of a strategic partner. HR leaders are expected to provide insights, not just policies. They are expected to use analytics to identify challenges, design solutions, and measure results. Modern HR professionals use dashboards, predictive models, and advanced visualization tools. They focus on employee experience, diversity and inclusion, skills mapping, and workforce planning. They address not only administrative needs, but also cultural, ethical, and strategic questions. The use of HR analytics is no longer optional. It is a requirement for organizations that want to stay competitive in a world where talent is the most critical resource. Why this history matters for you. Understanding this evolution is important for you as a learner. It shows that HR analytics did not appear out of nowhere. It is the result of decades of transformation, from administration to personnel management to human relations to strategic partnership, and finally to analytics-driven HR. By learning HR analytics, you are stepping into the latest chapter of this story. You are becoming part of the movement that positions HR as a true driver of business success. You are not just keeping up with trends, you are aligning yourself with the future of the profession. The history of human resources is a journey of growth and transformation. From welfare offices to personnel departments, from human relations to strategic partnership, each stage prepared the ground for the next. Today, analytics is the natural continuation of this evolution. It provides the evidence and the tools that HR needs to fully realize its role as a business partner. Recruitment is often called the gateway of the employee experience. It is the very first touchpoint where a potential employee interacts with the organization. If recruitment works well, The organization is able to attract the right people, bring them on board efficiently, and give them a positive first impression. If recruitment does not work well, the consequences ripple through the entire business. Vacancies stay open, costs rise, projects get delayed, and talented candidates may walk away to competitors. This is why recruitment metrics are so essential. They are not just numbers on a dashboard. They are windows into the health of your hiring process, into your ability to compete for talent, and into the sustainability of your workforce. Without recruitment metrics, organizations are flying blind. They may feel that something is wrong, but they cannot diagnose or fix it with precision. In this part of the course, we will explore 10 essential recruitment metrics. These are the most widely used and impactful measurements that organizations use to evaluate and improve hiring. As we go through each one, I will not only give you the formula, but also tell you why it matters, how to interpret it, and how to use it in practice. By the end, you will have a full toolkit that you can apply immediately in your work. Time to hire. Time to hire measures the number of days between the moment a candidate enters your recruitment pipeline, usually when they apply or when they are contacted by a recruiter, and the moment they accept your job offer. This metric matters because speed is critical in recruitment. Talented candidates are often considering multiple job opportunities at the same time. If your hiring process drags on, you risk losing the best candidates to faster competitors. In fact, research consistently shows that top candidates are often off the market within 10 to 14 days. If your hiring takes 50 or 60 days, you may be missing out on talent simply because of slow processes. How to calculate it? For each hire, subtract the application date from the hire date. Then calculate the average across all hires in a given period. In Excel, this looks like equals average hire date minus application date. Real-world story. A technology company I once worked with was puzzled because they were consistently losing strong candidates to competitors. When they calculated their time to hire, they discovered it was averaging 58 days. Competitors in the same market were hiring within 30 days. By mapping their recruitment process, they found that scheduling interviews was a major bottleneck. Managers were taking weeks to make themselves available. Once they streamlined scheduling and empowered recruiters to move faster, their time to hire dropped dramatically, and so did the number of candidates lost to competitors. So, time to hire is not just a number, it's a reflection of how agile, responsive, and competitive your hiring process is. Closely related, but slightly different, is time to fill. While time to hire starts from when the candidate enters the pipeline, time to fill starts earlier. It measures the number of days between when a job requisition is approved and posted and when the position is actually filled. This metric therefore includes the waiting time before candidates even apply. Why does this matter? Because open positions cost money. Every day a critical job remains unfilled, projects may be delayed, customer service may suffer, and existing employees may become overloaded. A long time to fill can also signal that the company's sourcing strategy is weak or that approval processes are too bureaucratic. Formula equals average hire date equals job requisition date. Example, a healthcare organization found that their average time to fill for nursing roles was 72 days. This was dangerously long, as it left hospital wards understaffed and increased the burden on existing nurses. By analyzing the data, they realized much of the delay was caused by lengthy approval processes before jobs were posted. They restructured their requisition approval workflow, cutting weeks out of the process. The result was faster hiring and safer staffing levels. Time to fill helps you see not just how fast you are at processing candidates, but how effective your entire recruitment ecosystem is, from the moment a job opens to the moment it is closed. Cost per hire. Recruitment is expensive, and cost per hire helps you understand exactly how much it costs to bring a new employee into the organization. This metric includes all recruitment-related expenses: advertising on job boards, recruiter salaries, agency fees, candidate travel expenses, assessments, and even onboarding costs. When you divide the total by the number of hires, you get the average cost per hire. Formula equals total recruitment costs divided by number of hires. Why is this important? Because recruitment budgets are not infinite. Leaders need to know if money is being spent wisely. Cost per hire also helps compare different recruitment channels. If referrals cost far less than agencies but deliver equally good candidates, you may want to shift resources. Story. A retail company once believed agencies were their most effective source of talent. When they calculated cost per hire, they discovered that agency hires were costing over $6,000 each, while referral hires cost under $1,500. What's more, referral hires stayed longer. With this insight, they invested heavily in a referral bonus program and reduced agency spending, saving millions over several years. Cost per hire is not only about cutting costs. Sometimes higher costs are justified if they deliver better hires. But without this metric, you cannot have an informed discussion about efficiency. Quality of hire. Speed and cost are important, but they are not enough. You could hire very quickly and cheaply, but if those hires are poor performers, the organization suffers. That is why quality of hire is considered by many experts to be the most important recruitment metric. Quality of hire is about measuring how well new employees perform once they are on the job and how long they stay. There is no single formula, but one common approach is to combine performance ratings, retention rates, and sometimes cultural fit scores into an index. Simplified formula equals average performance score of new hires plus retention rate of new hires divided 2. This metric is more challenging to calculate because it requires linking recruitment data with performance and retention data. But when done well, it provides the clearest answer to the question: are we hiring the right people? Imagine two recruitment teams. Team A hires quickly and cheaply, but 30% of their hires leave within the first year. Team B takes slightly longer and costs more, but their hires perform strongly and stay for years. Without a quality of hire metric, leadership might mistakenly praise Team A. With the metric, it becomes clear that Team B is actually delivering more long-term value. Offer acceptance rate. Recruitment does not end until the candidate says yes. Offer acceptance rate measures how often candidates accept your job offers. Formula equals accepted offers over total offers times 100. A low acceptance rate can be a warning sign. It may mean your compensation packages are uncompetitive, your employer brand is weak, or your process is too slow. High acceptance rates, on the other hand, suggest that candidates find your offers attractive. Example: a consulting firm once had an acceptance rate of only 62%. Many candidates were rejecting offers and choosing competitors. Through exit surveys, HR discovered that the main issue was not salary, but the long delays between interviews and offers. By speeding up their decision-making, they raised acceptance rates to over 85%. Offer acceptance is a simple but powerful measure of your competitiveness in the talent market. Applicant to hire ratio, also known as the selection ratio. This metric compares the number of applicants to the number of successful hires. Formula equals applicants divided by hires. A very high ratio suggests you are attracting many candidates, but few are qualified. This can waste recruiter time and create inefficiency. A very low ratio may suggest the opposite. Not enough candidates are applying, which limits choice. Case: a software company once had applicant-to-hire ratios of over 200 to 1 for entry-level roles. Recruiters were overwhelmed with resumes. By rewriting job descriptions and being more specific about requirements, they reduced ratios to 50 to 1, saving time while still maintaining quality. The right ratio varies by role, but tracking it helps you understand whether your sourcing strategy is well targeted. Sourcing channel effectiveness. Not all recruitment channels are created equal. Some deliver fast, high-quality candidates. Others produce large volumes of unqualified applicants. By measuring sourcing channel effectiveness, you can see which channels give the best return on investment. How to calculate? For each channel, track the number of hires, cost per hire, and quality of hire. Then compare. Story: a global company discovered that 45% of their best performing hires came from LinkedIn, even though it accounted for only 20% of their recruitment spend. Meanwhile, a major job board was producing lots of applicants but very few good hires. With this data, they shifted budgets, reducing wasted spending and increasing quality. Sourcing effectiveness allows you to invest where it really counts. Candidate Experience Score. Recruitment is not just about filling jobs. It is also about shaping perceptions. Candidates talk about their experiences, whether they are hired or not. A poor experience can damage your employer brand. Candidate Experience Score is often measured through surveys that ask candidates about communication, fairness, clarity, and timeliness. Formula equals average survey scores. A positive candidate experience builds goodwill even with those who are not hired. A negative one can harm reputation, making it harder to attract talent in the future. Example: one company surveyed rejected candidates and found that many never received feedback. By improving communication and sending constructive rejection notes, they improved their candidate experience score and strengthened their reputation. Early turnover, new hire attrition. Early turnover measures how many new hires leave within the first 6 to 12 months. Formula equals new hires who left over total new hires times 100. This is a critical metric because it reveals whether recruitment decisions are truly sustainable. If many new hires leave quickly, something is wrong, either in selection, onboarding, or culture. Case: a financial company found that 25% of new hires left within 6 months. By analyzing exit interviews, they discovered that the onboarding process was chaotic, with little training or support. After redesigning onboarding, early turnover dropped to under 10%. Early turnover is one of the clearest signals of recruitment effectiveness. Finally, let's look at vacancy rate, the percentage of total positions that are currently unfilled. Formula equals open positions over total positions times 100. This metric provides a snapshot of workforce gaps. High vacancy rates mean positions are staying open too long, which may increase workloads for existing employees and hurt performance. Example: A manufacturing company tracked a 15% vacancy rate in production roles. This led to constant overtime for current staff and increased burnout. By monitoring vacancy rates, they made the case for more aggressive recruitment strategies and staffing solutions. Recruitment metrics give you a full picture of how well your hiring process works. They show you not just speed and cost, but quality, candidate experience, and long-term outcomes. The 10 metrics we covered together form a comprehensive recruitment dashboard. Each number tells part of the story, but together they provide a powerful narrative about your ability to compete for talent, manage resources, and build a strong workforce.